Welcome, everybody. I'll give everyone another minute or so to make their way here. Hi, Alfred. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Sure. Everyone's muted and video off. Okay, so this is going to be an interesting experience. Um, Welcome. You certainly don't have to be that way. You can make it as interactive as you want it to be. I'm Nafeez. I am the president of Sherpa Prep and the co-founder of Smart with the Heart. I've been involved in standardized testing and graduate school admissions for now approaching 2 decades. Uh, I'm also proud to be on the board of the Penn Club of DC. And so I hope in the next hour or so I can give you some of my experiences, some of my understanding of this process, and feel free to ask me questions, interrupt me. I probably have some insight for you, and if I don't, I'll tell you where to go get it. Okay. Um, so welcome everybody, and let's go forward. So, title of this presentation is Thinking About Grad School, How to Decide and How to Apply. And certainly it's a topic that's uh, full of misinformation at times. There's a lot of different sources of information. Not all of it's good. Uh, the expenses associated are amazing. So I understand where the anxiety comes from, and I understand why there are so many people who register for this event. So feel free to ask me anything. Little background about me. Um, Again, I've been doing it for quite some time, and our company has always been mission driven. We're very proud to have uh, take a rounding error type of dent in in widening access to graduate school. And our nonprofit uh, is probably our most proud achievement. So if you want to read about that, feel free. But today is more about you than me, for sure. So a couple of topics that we can discuss today: career pivots, how to make them, should we make them, return on investments for these pivots, for certain programs, for this education that you may pursue, how to choose schools that uh, might help you achieve these outcomes, how to choose recommenders who will likely be needed in preparing your application, standardized testing, which uh, may be needed as well. Certainly, many grad schools don't require them, but plenty do. And personal statements. How do you really differentiate on those? How do you make those better than others? I think the way to start uh, answering these questions is to drill down. I think your application will be far more successful if you know your why and you have concrete evidence as to why you're pursuing this. Um, I've I've talked to there's not an exaggeration, tens of thousands of people in this position where you may be, and at various stages of their career. I've talked to people in college. I've talked to people in high school. A couple of years ago, I had a student who was in her 80s pursuing grad school. So I've seen some things, and I think the way every one of us should think about pursuing education, especially graduate school, is a drill down approach. Um, if you are self-aware as to why you're wanting to do this, you'll have clarity uh, uh, in your application, and you'll also probably do a better job in school. You know, the time is yours, and you want to make the best of your time if you are at these places, which are very costly, not just in terms of tuition, it's also opportunity cost, lost salary, lost experience in industry. So I think this is probably the right sequence. Feel free to uh, comment, disagree. Certainly not everyone is the same in here, so I'm giving generalized advice at this point, and certainly you can tailor these things and amend them or reject them. It's really about you. So, what do you want to do is the most important question. Um, is it change your career? Is it uh, start a new business? Is it become a lawyer and be an advocate for a certain population? Is it to become a doctor? Is it become a a a technocrat? What do you want to do? Now, it's a tough question. I admit that, but if we don't start answering that, all of this is a very costly exercise. Um, And sometimes people go to grad school just to park themselves while the economy isn't so good, or park themselves while they're currently unemployed or underemployed. That's pretty costly in terms of time lost and of course these tuitions. So it is really important that you, uh, if you don't know, start thinking about it and at least have some options. What do you want to do? And the immediate follow-up to that is, why do you want to do this? Certainly, there could be financial benefits to this career uh, trajectory change or this pivot that you want to make, and there's no issue with that. But ideally, the reason why you want to do this thing, this career, um, has benefits beyond the financial. Maybe they're intellectual benefits. Maybe you feel like your current job isn't allowing you to um, use all of your talents, or maybe you're bored. Um, just you haven't really had to use all the facilities you have, and I meet people like that all the time. Maybe you feel like there's a ceiling. The next job you want, you're not going to be able to get without um, a credential. Uh, I think of all the reasons why, financial certainly can be part of it. The credential nature of some of these degrees could be part of it. But I think the ones that are most compelling and the ones that you can really use to draw from, like a reservoir of will to draw from, are the ones that are closer to Maslow's self-actualization. Those are the ones that I find, if people drill into those, they end up becoming much more successful in these applications. They interview much better. And when they get to school, they flourish because they have clarity. So, the schools aren't going anywhere. Uh, you can apply whenever you like. It's just, if you can get clarity on these things, it would be helpful to you, not just to get in, but to thrive there. Another question I ask is, what is stopping you from doing that thing now? Again, is it you were passed over for a promotion? Is it credential based? Is it a little bit of self-awareness? Is it a knowledge thing? Is it a skill thing? Like, this is something you want to do. You want to start your own business. You want to try this new venture, but you really wouldn't be any good at it. And so you have some anxiety about starting. Um, you would like to get some knowledge or some experience or some internships, or you need some mentorship from someone. These are very good reasons to go if we have those. From there, if you can identify those things, then now we're getting a little bit into the nitty gritty. Would a graduate school program help you? Because some of these things, like mentorship or knowledge, can be achieved in other ways. There's certainly smaller investments you can make, smaller investments of time. You can join a club. You can do maybe a smaller certificate program. Maybe you can do something on Coursera. Maybe you can volunteer in the industry you want to pivot into. There are ways to get these things without the formality of grad school. If you feel that the graduate school is going to be a booster or a turbocharge, or for what you want to do, necessary, like, for example, medicine, perhaps, law, perhaps, okay, maybe it's an easier case to make. If the answer is yes to graduate school to help you, then, which I think a lot of you might be already there in your head, which graduate schools would work for you? Not just in terms of school name, Penn, other Ivies, Stanford, whatever, not just the name of the schools, but also the type of program within that school. Like, for example, a lot of people who answer this in this survey are thinking about MBAs. And MBAs can be achieved in a lot of different formats. A lot of different dosages are available for MBAs. Obviously, there's the full-time model, the full-time 2-year model. There's also a full-time 1-year model at some schools. I'm not here to promote any school here but Penn, but there are other excellent schools that have 1-year MBAs that are full-time. And some of them are in Europe. There's also, of course, executive MBAs where you get to keep your job, you get to continue getting a paycheck, you get to continue getting benefits and bonuses and promotions, but you go to school on weekends, every other weekend, perhaps. There's also flexible or part-time MBAs where you can go at night, a couple of nights a week, or sometimes you go in person, and sometimes some programs will have online options, which are becoming much more credible for sure. Some top schools offer online options now. What format is correct for you? And then some of you also answered that you want to go to law school. There's part-time law school too. Certainly not every school offers it, but there's part-time law school too. Which format is right for you? What's the spectrum of outcomes that could help you achieve those things you want to achieve towards the top of this funnel? The next question that you should ask and try to answer is, how are you sure? This is a critical reasoning test in a way. What evidence do you have? What premises? What studies? What facts do you have? A lot of us have conclusions, but we don't have the evidence to back it up. And if I can leave you with anything today, it's we got to do some research. We got to do certainly some soul searching and some honest questions of ourselves. But we also have to do some research as to what the outcome should be. There are so many options for you, and the number of options is only going to multiply exponentially as the different formats of school keep coming. More and more schools are offering flexibility in how they offer their services. And so what trade-offs are you willing to make? What trade-offs, I should probably add, what trade-offs should you make? If you are already in the industry you want to be in, let's say you really like your job, maybe your boss is fine, but you're not skilled enough or knowledgeable enough to do your boss's boss job. Okay, then maybe instead of doing the full-time thing, you might want to consider a part-time thing. Keep getting the experience, keep getting industry knowledge, keep getting contacts, keep getting salary, and level up in the way that you think is probably a little bit less of a risk. Perhaps that might be the answer for you. If you are looking for a full career switch, then you might want to do the full time because then it gives you the option for internships. Um, the internship, especially for full-time MBAs, is really needed for people who want a career pivot. So you work in government now, but you want to post MBA go into finance. You want to go into consulting. You want to go into a big tech firm, and you have no education in that. You have no experience in that. Well, that internship between year 1 and year 2 of a full-time MBA is exactly where you change careers, so to speak. That's where you get vetted by an employer in your new field. And so you can do that costume change in between year 1 and year 2. The part-time MBAs, that's a little bit harder to do those full pivots because you're still working, and when are you going to make that full pivot? So the more you like your job, the more you're in the industry that you like or want to end up in, the case for flexibility is stronger. Any questions about this so far? No. Opportunity costs. These are some things that I would consider if I were you. Opportunity costs include time. So full-time is, of course, 2 years for full-time MBAs, 3 years for law, 4 years plus for medicine. That's not including residencies. Like, what else could you be doing in that time? The more seasoned you are, the more expensive those years are. If you are just out of college, then those years aren't as expensive, perhaps, because you have fewer demands of your time. Financial opportunity costs for sure, but it's not just the tuition. You got to look at tuition after scholarships because tuition is just the sticker price, but many times people don't pay sticker. There's scholarships and there's aid, and so don't be so distracted by the sticker. Certainly, scholarships are available for a lot of things, and scholarships can be applied for, but because at least half of you, 2/3 of you said MBA is a consideration. The good news is for MBAs, most of the top schools already automatically put you up for scholarships. And all you have to do to get those scholarships to reduce your tuition is to apply really well. So there isn't anything extra to do, no extra hurdle to overcome. The people who get in comfortably are the ones who get offered some scholarships. So there isn't anything extra to do. Certainly there's third parties out there as well. But I don't want you to fixate on tuition. I also want you to think about salary that you would be losing if you go full-time, and of course benefits. It could be insurance, it could be other privileges that you're giving up, vesting options, whatnot. Don't just focus on tuition. The third one is, of course, if you're already in that industry, is lost experience. A lot of, especially for MBAs, it's really about networking. The network effects are incredible. And that's why a lot of people are going. Like, I don't have a network. That's why I want to go. Well, that's good. But if you're already in that industry, then when you come back in 2.5 years, what kind of environment are you walking into? No one has a crystal ball, and it's difficult to foresee where where our economy will be in 2026, 2027. But these are things you might want to consider. Certainly, there are macro events that no one can predict. The class of 2020 of mine that graduated right into the onset of COVID. That's a tough break, right? A lot of them struggled to get placed anywhere near what they um, thought they would get placed in, and of course we don't wish that upon anybody, but we do want to at least think about what are we giving up in terms of experience. Another thing to consider is, especially for those of you who are looking for research degrees, and some of you are looking in arts and sciences. Uh, uh, One of you, or at least two of you, asked about doctoral programs. This is about relationships in that program. The more niche the program, the more it's about who are you going to be researching for? Is there alignment in what your interests are? And the professors who will be shepherding you into this new field. And so it's, the wrong research advisor, the wrong graduate advisor can really uh, be hard to overcome. And so what I would strongly consider as I'm coming up my list of schools is, can I identify people whose research I want to do? Because ultimately it's a very feudal system in PhD land. It's yeah, well, it's a serfdom, right? We're going to work the land, and we'll be in the good graces uh, of the Lord, and hopefully, if I pay my dues, I will be presented, and everything's going to work out, and then the system perpetuates. And I'm not saying it's fair or good, but that's what it is at the moment. So who am I working with, and who am I working for? Who will who do I intellectually and personally align with? It's very important. And the smaller, the more niche the program or the academic uh, sector, the more important it is about who you're working with and who's going to recommend you for that job. That will be a research job or academic job. It's a terribly big deal. Professional trajectory is another thing I would consider. You might want to think about the sugar pill, the placebo. What do you think your career would be if you didn't get this intervention? If you do what you're doing now, you keep doing it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, however long this program would be, what do you think you'd be doing without the intervention? Where would you be financially? Where would you be professionally? How much money would you be making? What would be the next job you would be able to get? Um, I certainly don't believe money is everything. Certainly not. But I do think it's a factor that is, of all the things, the easiest to measure. Um, the self-actualization bit is a little bit harder to measure, but it's certainly something we should think about. Doing the things you want to do, doing the things you want to do for yourself, for your family, for others. It's very hard to value, but it absolutely has intangible value. And I encourage you to think about that. But the professional bit, the financial opportunity costs, it's not easy to calculate. I'll show you how to start doing that, but it's certainly doable. Question came in. If you include MSW, MPP, MPA as examples, sure. So absolutely. MSW, MPP, MPA. Absolutely. So this is the research that I would do regardless of where I am in that funnel of questions. One thing I would do is I would look at placement. What is the school I'm looking at? Where are the students being placed? And so let me show you some examples here. Every school that's even has a modicum of relevancy has an office, a career office, and they have stats that are readily available. And these are all publicly posted, and they're not hard to find. It's 28 seconds of Google. You can find some stuff, and you get the big information: class size, employment. This is Penn Law. Good employment, 245 out of 248. That's good. What kind of firms are they working at? Clerks, what businesses, what industries. You get salary information, what kind of clerkships. So you get a lot of stuff. This is not a bad starting point. It takes no time to find. Business schools are even easier. They have whole brochures about stuff. They tell you what people are making for that summer internship, full-time salaries, functions of jobs. You can go get a job at Amazon, but not everyone at Amazon does the same thing, right? So it's a massive company, global company. What are you doing there? Are you doing strategy? Are you doing logistics? What are you doing? So they even break it down by function and location. Where are these people being placed? Obviously, we might have preferences, geographic preferences, some of us, because of family or just lifestyle. You might not want to work in certain regions for whatever reason. And so you might want to pick schools that feed your intended locale. Obviously, the top schools can get you anywhere, but every school has places where they funnel and where the network effects are strongest. But this is just a starting point, my friends. This is not where I would end. Certainly, they have employers and stuff, but this is just a starting point. What I would do after I get this intelligence, right? Whether it's you know the law school stuff or business school or nursing school or whatever. And also for those of you who are looking for research intensive degrees, that placement is even easier to find because there's so few people in that program. Certain doctoral programs only take 2 people a year, and they'll have a Facebook of all the people who are graduating and trying to get new academic jobs. So you can very easily see where people are getting placed or not, the smaller the program. But what I would do, especially if you're going for law or business, the bigger grad schools, these are starting points. And then what I would do is I would take this and then I would go to the student clubs. So especially the business schools. Business schools and law schools have these robust clubs, club environment. Here's Wharton's, for example. Lots, this is just the A's, aerospace, agribusiness, analytics, A and Z. There's a lot of clubs. And so what I would do, especially for the ones that are, as we're trying to answer the professional questions, not just the wine club, the fun ones, the professional clubs, which clubs would you be interested in joining while you're at school? Where are you going to make this professional transition? Because the club environment's where you're going to start doing it. That's where you're going to get, as you see here, that's where you're going to start networking. That's where you're going to start going to conferences. That's where you're going to start cultivating relationships that will hopefully get you placed and help you long beyond. So which clubs would you join? Where would you spend your time? And I would talk to people in these clubs. A lot of these clubs have websites for sure. They have emails. They are to varying degrees responsive to inbound queries. Uh, uh, Obviously, in the summer, they might be a little busy. They're out of school. They might be at their internship, but they're there for a reason. They have their own events. They have their own programming. And I would try to get intelligence from them. How's it going? How is it uh, better or worse than you thought it would be? They're all going to have some public facing people. But if I were you, I would try to get past that level. I try to go to the second level, the people who aren't flying the flag for the school or the school ambassador for the club. I try to talk to people, maybe through the events, maybe through LinkedIn. Hey, I'm a Penn graduate. I'm thinking about this. Can I bother you for 5 minutes? Right. I try to find people who are not flying the flag so I can get more unvarnished uh, lived experiences. That's absolutely what I encourage you to do. How's it going there? And how easy is it to recruit? How hard is it to recruit? Um, and certainly don't take any individual oral narrative too seriously. That's just one person. But I would try to get a couple from every school that I'm considering. Um, and uh, and this on top of the employment reports can tell me a lot more of what's happening here. Um, you want to take these employment reports and try to exclude, to the extent possible, the people who are not making pivots. If you're going to be pivoting from one industry to another, you want to try to find people who are kind of like you, who are just a couple years ahead of you in life. Um, uh, they're probably your best comps, right? There are people here who got jobs at companies that they're already connected with. Some of these numbers are, I got to say, kind of corrupted by people who are getting jobs for family offices or friends of friends. So they got jobs and it had nothing to do with the career services. It basically had nothing to do with the degree. It just, the degree for them was just a dot the I, cross the T kind of thing, but it wasn't really that necessary. You want to try to find people who are close to you in the experience, in terms of lived experience. For the person who asked about MSWs and MSW, my wife is actually uh, is in that field, and she actually works for a university in this field. For MSW, uh, they do have placement. Um, they do have placement records for sure, but I think you might find that uh, the school is not as important as the region in terms of the financial numbers. It's career services. Some schools are certainly better connected with hospital systems and clinics than others. But I think you'll find as you research MSW employment reports that they might not be as robust because uh, it's not a field that people go into because of its lucrative nature, right? There's definitely placement, and I'd try to make sure I wouldn't apply to a school where I'm not happy with their placement, but the numbers might be a little bit more anecdotal and not as polished as Penn laws, right? But they exist, and there's certainly students that you should be able to talk to. MPP programs, the public policy ones. Uh, Sometimes people do those standalone, right? Um, uh, uh, Speaking locally, Georgetown is a popular one. The Kennedy School at Harvard is a popular one, and they have a pretty robust report, both of those schools and other schools like it. However, a lot of people who apply to those programs are bundling them with something else, like an MBA, MPP, perhaps. And so if any of you are considering joint degrees, I would, before I just add on an extra year of classes and tuition and lost uh, and time off the job market, before I just add on another year like that, um, I I would figure out, okay, what kind of placement, um, you know, are the MPP people getting? What kind of placement are the MBAs getting? And what kind of placement are the joint people getting? Right? And often I find the joint people really aren't getting anything different from the MBA people often. So I think for anyone who's doing the MPP MBA, it, I'm not saying uh, people shouldn't do it, but I think the threshold uh, is higher for success. Like before anyone convinces you to do that extra year, like get convinced with the data, get convinced with the facts and figures and the oral narratives that this is actually a differentiator. Um, Often I find it's not. The JD MBAs, that's law school is a different thing. There's a different host of jobs and careers you can have with a law degree. It's a different kind of credential. JD MBAs, for sure. That's a 4-year program, but uh, it's also not a guarantee that the uh, post placement is that different. Um, Especially for the JD MBAs who then get corporate jobs who aren't practicing law. There's certainly no shortage of lawyer or law school students who don't practice law. And if you think you're one of them, or might be one of them, uh, the JD MBA is a very expensive degree to get that was perhaps unnecessary. So the details matter there. We talk about these these narratives. So employment reports are certainly a starting point, a very easy place to start your research. Current students, I would say, are necessary. You got to talk to them. And again, you want to get past the ambassadors. The ambassadors are going to fly the flag and they're going to be rah rah. That's nice, thank you. But let's get past that. Let's go to the next level. The people who aren't there to sell the school, right? That's the real stuff. I would want to talk to recent graduates for sure. The schools sometimes can put you in touch with them. Certainly, LinkedIn networks are easy to find recent graduates, people who graduated 2022, 2021. What are they up to? And again, some of them might be beneficiaries or victims of macro events. So don't take any one experience too seriously, but try to collect a few for sure. Uh, this is something that schools are only recently getting better at tracking, the longitudinal benefits of the degree. Everyone just says, every school says, there's these wonderful long-term benefits, and they bring in a really wonderful graduate who graduated 30 years ago, and they're doing amazing things, right? But as far as tracking outcomes for these people, schools are just scratching the surface in that. And I think as data is shared more easily and there's um, networks and platforms to do so, I think the long-term benefits of degrees are going to be easier to calculate. But for the time being, we do have to get just narratives. So we want to talk to as many people as possible who are 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out. And you want to, especially if you're, uncertain about your why, these are the people you want to talk to. Like, what are some like You've been a graduate of the school for 25 years. What has happened to you because of this degree? Who did you meet? What did you do? Give me something as to something that you, a positive, unintended consequence. Oh, it's this chance relationship, this chance thing happened because of this. You want to get as much as possible. And the long-term people have a better chance at telling you that. The current students really haven't seen too much of the benefits. They're just trying to survive. They're just trying to get placed. They're currently unemployed, right? They're getting through school and they're just trying to get a job. The recent graduates, uh, they could tell you something. They can tell you, this is how I got placed. This is how I made my pivot. That's cool. That's nice. But the real interesting folks are the people who can tell you, this intervention at that time in my life put me on a completely different trajectory, for good or bad, but it's probably easier to find the good. So there's definitely some survivor bias there. But I strongly encourage you to try to get all of it. I want you to get the good and the bad and make an informed decision. This is better for you that way. Just don't just leave it with the bright-eyed, happy people who are giving the tours. Like, nah, that's nice, but you might be telling the truth, but I need to get more than you. Information sessions. This is another place you can go. Information sessions are run by all the programs. Certainly, most of them have both in-person and now video conference Zoom programs, so you don't have to spend the money to travel if you want to go to a school that's not near you. But I would say these are near mandatory for you to do. Don't think about an information session as you simply receiving intel. It's not that at all. Information sessions are opportunities for you to differentiate yourself. Another thing I want to impart to you all today is that the schools you want to go to, don't let everyone in. And that's precisely, if we're being honest, that's exactly why you're applying, right? You want to go to schools that are very selective, right? If we're being honest. And so because they have many more applications and seats, right? They might have 20 applications per admitted student, or they might have, for doctoral programs, even more than that, hundreds per one. What you want to do is differentiate by the quality of your questions. So before every information session, what you want to do is do at least 30 minutes or an hour of research on the school. What are the classes? What are the clubs you would join? Who are the professors who are doing really interesting work? Are there any, not that you have to name drop, that can get awkward and off-putting, but are there any people at that school now who can help you get in intelligence, or let's say boost your application? Let me show you some things here. For MBAs, which are, again, 2/3 of you, at least who answered the form, are telling me. We've compiled a lot of the top schools. This is usually the top 25, top 50 schools, top programs, top 25 schools that offer online programs, European Canadian schools, and you can click here and you can find their events, what they're doing. In the summer, of course, they get a little bit less busy, but MBA programs tour the world a couple times a year. Usually around July, they hit North America. They also make a go round in the fall, usually October, and they'll hit. Sometimes school will go around and tour the country in the spring as well. And that's beyond the online events they have, their online coffee chats and stuff. So you want to ask questions that reveal that you've done the homework. You want to ask questions that are not answerable by Claude or Copilot, okay, that are not Googleable. You want to ask specific questions that have premises in them. I saw Ethan Mollick Wharton's top AI professor. I saw his post on this and this. Could you tell me a little bit more about that? Ask a question that has a premise in it that shows that you are not like the other people who are just receiving intelligence. You're giving intelligence too. You're separating them. You're separating yourself from others. Uh, that is easily notable. I go to MBA events, MBA tour events, probably 15 or 20 a year for the last 15 years. And it's so easy to see who is uh, with it and who's not. It's so obvious. And it doesn't take a whole lot to be on the right side of that. It doesn't take, it just takes a little bit of Googling, a little bit of research. Um, and law schools have it too, these sessions. Um, let me find you. See here, Penn Carry Law Admissions. Look forward to speaking to you. They're doing it in late August. And so they do it. Law schools usually do it less frequently than MBA business schools do, but certainly they do this kind of stuff. Smaller research programs are often by appointment. They might have one Zoom seminar, but certainly they have an inbox. So if you write something that shows that that you spent some time, you'll probably get a favorable response in terms of someone talking to you. It's really about showing that you're worth the time to talk to because you've at least done the decency of reading their website. My wife's in it again, social work admissions, and she's like, you know, the answers to most of the questions are directly on the website. So some of these questions are like self-excluding because they're basically admitting through their question that they're not reading. So we want to be on the right side of this. Okay. Another reason you want to go to these information sessions is that you want to gather intelligence to personalize your statements. Okay. Again, differentiation is key. The schools you want to go to don't let everyone in. That's the whole point. And they don't let really qualified students in. And the people who get in have done something special. I'll show you the ways to be special in an application, but one of the ways is through gathering intelligence. You want to personalize these statements. Don't say Wharton's so awesome at finance or strategy. They know that. Everyone knows that. What you want to say is there's a specific thing or specific things, preferably 2 or 3 things that are so idiosyncratic to that school you're applying that you can't imagine doing this thing that you want to do. You're the top of your funnel why. You can't imagine attempting this thing without this specific without the specific opportunity. You want to show that you've done the research that if they do get the honor of admission to this law school, this business school, this med school, this whatever, that you will make the most of it. And you will not waste anyone's time. You want to show that you will be a contributor. You'll be a user of the experience. You'll be a user of the knowledge, but you'll also contribute to it. Adam Grant, the famous Wharton professor, had that book, Givers and Takers. And in that, he posits that in most settings, we're one of 3 things. Givers, where we're giving intelligence, we're giving mentorship, we're giving knowledge. Takers, when we're taking it. And the third one, it makes for a less catchy title, matchers, where we're amongst peers, right? Givers, takers, matchers. And so what you want to do is in these interactions and in your personal statements, show how specifically you will take from them, from their club environment, from their coursework, from their international programs, from whatever. Get as specific as you can. That's what this intelligence findings are for. And then how you will contribute to those things, because they're trying to see who belongs in their ecosystem. And an ecosystem isn't just a lot of takers. There's got to be some givers. And don't talk about how in the long term you'll write this big check. That doesn't carry any weight. What they want to show is, they want to see is, all right, next fall, what is your action plan here? How will you make our environment better through your expertise, your lived experience, your drive, your professional experience? How can we not have you? How can we afford not to have you? Okay. Make it very difficult for them to say no to you. And the more research intensive, especially for those of you who are looking at psychology programs, one of you is looking at an AI doctoral research program, it's really about trying to find that sponsor. It's trying to get alignment with the researcher who you will work for. Because honestly, the more it's a PhD application, the more it's a research intensive program, even a research intensive master's. It's about some professor believing that you are aligned with this research interest. So you can look at the professor's page and their publications, that you are aligned with that, and that if they were to give you this horrifyingly tedious task, this data set that is gigabytes wide, Excel sheets that don't end, that you will not mess it up, that you can do the grunt work. If I were applying to a research program, I would make sure that I identify one or two people who I want to work for, and I convince them I will not mess up your stuff. You can just hand it off, you'll get it back, and it'll be perfect. And their recommendation, their sponsorship of you, is all you really need. Honestly, for research things, it's about the professor thinking that you can do the job, and it's almost always enough, just that. With regard to more differentiation, the self-awareness you demonstrate is key. It's critical. You cannot present yourself as this model everything, that everything's perfect, because one, no one believes that. Two, it obviously comes across as self-serving and conceited, but it also practically hurts your case. The idea being school is a place where you get to experiment and level up and challenge yourself and change, right? Change for the better. So if someone presents themselves as perfect, they're not self-aware, and the school can very easily, the admissions person can very easily say, all right, then you keep doing you. You don't need to be here. If you're doing so well professionally and otherwise, just keep doing that. Why waste your time here, right? So being self-aware about the holes in your game can make all the difference. You don't need perfect GPAs. You don't need perfect test scores. You don't need a gold resume. You can have some imperfections. In fact, no one is a guarantee anywhere. And the self-aware people know that in their palette, there might be some things that are pluses, some things that are minuses, some things that are neutral. The minuses, maybe you had a tough freshman year. Maybe you don't have some great standardized test scores. Maybe your resume is not as impressive as other admitted students. Your peers in this whole system are not other applicants. That's not other, because most applicants are not competitive. What you want to benchmark yourself against are other admins. That's your peer group. And you might compare your resume versus a current student or an admit, and you say, you know what, if I'm being real, they got me on that. So I got to figure out where I can accentuate my positives, right? Where can I win? And the places where you're negative, you just need to be able to explain in an interview, in a personal statement, to tell them why this happened or why it's been this way, and what you have done to cure it, to better it, and how you are different now than you were then. So an application is an opportunity to really present yourself holistically. Every admissions person that I've talked to over the years is really trying their best in figuring out what makes you tick. And you can pick any fancy program in the world. I probably had students go there, and some of them barely graduated college. Um, they had horrible GPAs, but the person applying isn't the person who had that GPA, or they had, not that impressive jobs, or not great test scores, or whatever. But uh, there has to be something that's special, right? It can't be minus, 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 let me in. It's got to be uh, some pluses, some neutrals, and we want to minimize the minuses by, not making them too big and try to cure them before we apply. Okay, a question for information sessions. How do you recommend we ask questions in contexts where we aren't socially comfortable putting ourselves out there, or when there are a lot of other attendees angling to ask period questions in a short period of time? Yeah, that's a good question. Um, uh, this is where uh, so, there's sometimes testing social graces. Uh, what I would do is if it's a question of a personal nature, that goes to perhaps a deficiency that you are self-aware about. That is perhaps a private email, okay, that they might offer, admissions might offer, or an email you might get from one of these sessions, from one of these in-person sessions. Like, hey, here's my email if you have any questions. That might be something for a phone call or a private email. For the broader ones, uh, the road shows and there's 50 people huddled around, three individuals, I would just try to be the person who asks the question that has one or two facts in it before the question is asked. It's not um, it's not about you trying to cure anything. It's just about you trying to express that I am more researched than these other people. And that's that. Um, a lot of schools will also ask you in the application portal to list all the individuals that you talk to before you apply. And that's a way for them to figure out how serious is this application. There are many people who apply to programs because just of name alone, including some from our alma mater, right? Like outstanding school of engineering, business, law, medicine, and they're applying just because it's number whatever on the list, one, two, three, whatever's on the list. And they want to, the admissions people want to separate that. They don't, they're not that interested in the applicant who's applying to just the top schools. Because they're top schools. They want to figure out who's applying there for a very specific reason. And so if it's one of those cattle calls, you do your best. You want to attend a couple of these and hopefully you get a shot at an interaction. But at minimum, you get to show in the application that you did show up, and you get to name names. I talked to this person, this person, this person, this person. Um, with regard to Wharton, for example, their EMBA program, their exec program, it actually asks for referrals. Who would you talk to from a? It definitely helps. It doesn't get you in, but it could be the tiebreak. And at a competitive school, the tiebreak might be everything. Most people get in by tiebreaks at the competitive schools. So I wouldn't ask the questions that are about my deficiencies out loud. I would ask the questions that show that I am much more researched than the other folks. But yeah, there are people who disqualify themselves at these events, that they hog all the air, and everyone else in the room despises them because they're hogging all the air. And guess what? The admissions people pick up on that too, right? They don't have the EQ necessary to be in this ecosystem. And so, unfortunately, a lot of people disqualify themselves in these events because they think they're being smart. So, the angling to ask short questions, you might want to get them at the end. At the end of the event, that's when I find that you might get the most opportunities with them. At the very end, let's say the event is from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Stay around till 2:45. Stay around till 2:45. Say thank you, and here's my question. Okay. Well, I know we're at our time, but I'm certainly here to answer anything else you have. I do want to address a couple specific questions here uh, based off the survey. One of you asked, and I'm not sure you're in the room, but we are recording this. One of you asked about most efficient way to gain relevant research experience. And this is especially true for those research intensive degrees. Uh, One thing that I would look at are the research assistantships. Everyone is interested in people who are willing to do grunt work. For example, Penn has a page, um, and it's pretty cool that you can just search for the research projects. And if there's anything in that field, even 1 degree away, doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to uh, get that experience. You can put it on your resume, and you might even get a recommendation out of it, right? So not every school, but Penn's pretty good at this. And there's also, um, each of the specific schools has some stuff which are paid part-time, okay, that you might want to look at. And obviously, other schools outside of Penn might have this stuff for you too. And one of you asked, um, I won't say the age. I am, let's say, not a recent graduate. I would like to return to corporate America. I'm also interested in creating or purchasing a startup in an area of business outside of law. I would like to know whether there are cheaper options than an MBA or a joint MBA LLM. I'm skeptical about the value of certificates like Harvard's AMP program or Wharton's executive education programs. Is the ROI there for someone age 54? Yeah. Uh, I am very well aware and familiar with those programs that you mentioned. Uh, I would say your menu of options are those programs, or uh, I'll add Stanford has one program. I'm not saying it's better than Wharton's or anything, but I'll call it a peer program. They call it the SEP program. But Wharton for sure is perhaps the best. Harvard has some stuff. Stanford has some stuff that's um, in that milieu. I'll look at those, and I try to get to the students. I try to get to the recent graduates. They're the best to tell you. And if they don't get back to you, that tells you something, right? All of those programs will have administrators who will talk to you for sure. But you want to try to get to the students. They'll tell you quite a bit. And for what you're talking about, it's either those things, the espresso shot MBAs, the exec certificates, or it could be an exec MBA. Okay, the exec MBA is a 2-year thing. It is usually 2 years, 2.5 years at some schools. It's every other weekend. It's a Friday, Saturday. Uh, it'll be more tuition, but of course it's much more teaching, and it'll be frankly more work. Um, I think that's your menu to research. The exec MBA, of course, Wharton has a good one, a great one. It might be the best one, but it's either that or the special shot programs. Um, there's different time intensivity, there's different tuition, but what you want to do, the startup purchasing, it's really about deal flow. So you might want to learn something. You might want to get some education, in which case the EMBA might be a better fit. But if you're really talking about deal flow, it's really about the network effects of what's the value of this degree, which informational channels am I in? Can I get into that startup culture? Can I get into the investor angel network? It's how quickly can I get into that ecosystem? And that's why I think the AMP, the AFP, the GFP, no, AFP, AMP, GMP stuff might be interesting for you. I definitely think it's a menu option, but the other one would be exec MBA, which would be more time intensive. One more question. I'm primarily interested in doctoral research in AI as applied to robotics and mechatronics. I also have law and business degrees, so I won't rule out doctoral level work. I have two comments for you. Is the outcome that you're looking for to enter post-degree corporate America, or is it to become an academic? And that's a very important distinction. Most of the doctoral programs want academics. They don't love it when when big tech companies take away these people that they spent 5 years producing and who are going to produce the research for generations, right? They have a dim view on that. Now, for your specific thing about AI, there's probably going to be a bigger nexus between corporations and the ivory towers, because I'm certain that outside of Penn's program in AI, MIT has CSAIL, a long-existing computer science advanced artificial intelligence laboratory. I imagine Caltech has something. I know Stanford has something. But that nexus between the ivory tower and the open AIs and Microsofts of the world is probably an overlapping set that's pretty big. What is the outcome that you want? If it's more, I just want to be at the leading edge of things, then the doctoral program might not be for you, because they might weed out anyone who just wants to go to corporate. Because if you want to do just leading edge AI, you don't have to go do that 5-year process of serfdom, right? So I've had some people do computer science based AI PhDs, and I have, again, this is secondhand experience. It's not mine, but I know that if they had any whiff of, oh, they're going to go right back to corporate America with this, it was a deal breaker. So what do you want it for? What's the goal here? That's one thing. And also, the second point I want to make quickly is for AI, I wouldn't just limit myself to computer science programs. I definitely go into business as well, because AI should affect everything, strategy, business, everything. I would expand my my net. I'd widen my net outside of just the Carnegie Mellon, MIT, Caltech, Penn, Stanford, Berkeley, which are probably the best AI schools. I would widen my net into strategy, management strategy. So I'd include business schools there too. And Ethan Mollick, for sure. I'd follow him on LinkedIn. He's really doing quite a lot of work making AI accessible for the people. He's a strategy professor at Wharton. Okay, last question. Can I share the slides? Yeah, I can definitely make an external version. I'll share that. Could I touch on the ROI and personal statements topics? Yeah, the ROI. There are some easy calculators, which I can share with everybody. Like this is a good one, especially if you're looking for most of you are looking at business school. You can just fill this out and you can see outcomes. There's also just little math calculators, which I like. Like this you can use regardless of MBA. This can, you want to get MPP, you want to get a JD. Well, you can still do this and figure out at least the math of it. look at the employment report. What are people making? What are you making now? What do you think the tuition is? What do you think the loans are going to be, et cetera? You can use these things for any degree. I think the math part is the easiest research to do. The self-actualization, the trajectory change stuff, that's harder to project, but that's why you need to talk to people. Again, the three components, three groups of people are current students, recent grads, and long-term grads. And the school should help you connect with every one of those. And as soon as you get a connection, you ask for another name. You ask very politely, and you say, "Listen, I'm here in the information gathering stage. I hope you understand where this is coming from. Could you help me out and put me in touch with someone who is kind of like me?" See what happens. Worst they can say is no. And the best they can say is yeah. And then you can use that next name to advance your application. And personal statements. Yeah. There's the basic question every school will ask is why? Why do you want to do this? And that's why we start this whole talk, I guess, ending this on a tying this bow, is your why. They'll ask you, why are you doing this? And so what you want to do is have an answer for that. Okay. The dream. Give them the short-term dream, give them the long-term dream. The short-term dream should be practical. That's very doable. That is informed by their outcomes. They want to make sure that they can help you, right? You don't want to give them a dream that they've never seen anyone do. Okay. The long term should be ambitious, and it should be something that, has a low chance of actually materializing, but it's something that they'd be very proud to help you do. Okay. Then you want to get specific as to the research opportunities at the school, the curriculum at the school, the centers of innovation at the school, whatever you want to do. Very specific about what you'll take from the school. Now, the next element in this application, personal statement, should be, what will you give to that school? Like, how will you help their existing initiatives? And if they don't have something, that's great. Tell them how you'll start one, right? Let's say they don't have a big presence in a community that you're very familiar with, or an industry you're familiar with. You can be a go-between. Maybe they're underrepresented in a certain geography or ethnicity or lived experience, and say how you can help widen those funnels. What's the value add? So the components of a personal statement should be your why, your what will you take, what will you give? And that's how you win here. And with that, I should let you all go. We're over time, but hopefully this was helpful. And I will certainly be around to answer some questions if you want to email them to me. Is there a recording? Yeah, I will send you all. I'll send you all a place where there are recordings of this kind of information. With regard to the Penn Club, I'm not sure whether I can what I can share. There's some rules here, but I've done this talk a few times in variations, so I'll send you some materials. And thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
You're welcome, Warren.